Welcome to the Go Find Nervous Show. I'm your host, Jake Bolig. This is the show where we find out at least 3 experiences that made our guests nervous on their journey to success and kind of how they overcame it. Today, I got a pretty special guest. I'm pretty stoked to talk to this woman, this lady I met a couple years ago, and I've been a follower of her and her ideas. And she's just this entrepreneur now that's got her hands in a lot of things, but she's going to tell us it didn't start there, and we're going to get her story right now. So I got Savannah Activa on the show today. Savannah, what's up?
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I'm happy to talk to you face to face. We've talked back and forth so
Likewise.
long, for a couple
Yeah,
years.
I know.
We can't talk about some of like the political stuff. I'm sure we talk about,
Right.
but
Yeah.
like we probably get the
You
show. The
know.
show probably wouldn't make it on YouTube. But
Right.
so
It might be canceled.
it definitely would get canceled probably. So you're like this super inspiring person. You're doing a lot of different things. You have your hands in like cannabis, and you have your hands like boudoir stuff or something. Like I don't know much
hmm
about that, but we talked
Yes.
in the past, like how you inspire women with that, or you hear these great stories. But kind of give me a background. Like where did it start? It didn't always start with like all these businesses. Like where did you start and how does it all
Right.
begin? Yeah.
Well, I've lived a pretty unconventional life. In 20 minutes, that will not be enough time. So the
No.
abridged version of like where kind of things are now, or how we got to where things are now. Back in 20, so I got married in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a child in 2012. And then January of 2017, we actually separated.
Okay.
And at that point in time, obviously, I didn't know then what I know now. So I was going through my own personal journey at that time, again, unbeknownst to me, really, what was happening subconsciously and kind of behind the scenes internally.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, we separated. I started working for my brother-in-law. I, at that point, was a single mom. He had moved out. I had a mortgage and a kid that went to school, but he was in kindergarten. And so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I was working for my brother-in-law because I could work from home. I
Mm-hmm.
could arrange that, with kid schedule, whatever. Well, I just still was like, I am not supposed to be doing this. Like, I know I'm supposed to own my own business. I know I'm supposed to work for myself, but I just had spent my entire 20s like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Like
So,
many of us do. Yeah.
oh my gosh, yes. And
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
already had my hands in so many things. I started working at 15. And so I'd already done so many different things and there's so many interests. And it was just like, I really felt like jack of all trades, master of none. Like,
Mm,
just pick one. And I just couldn't. And so
yeah.
it was very frustrating for me internally. And one day I was just like, I went into my brother-in-law's office and I was like, I can't work for you anymore. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can no longer like build other people's dreams. Like, I love you. No offense. I've worked for people since I was 15. I guess that time I was 30. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I just can't. Like, I've got to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
He says, why don't you do what your sister does? So at this point in time, my sister had a full-on beauty business, bridal business, doing hair and makeup. I had been assisting her since my child was 2. And so just it got me out of the house, whatever, because I was living the stay-at-home mom life. And I was always on the sidelines of the beauty industry, but because I had started in business at 15 at a law firm, I never saw myself as working in the creative space in that way.
I
I
see.
just kind of like, I'm supposed to do business. And so I tell him no. I'm like, no, that's her thing. And he's like, well, I don't understand though, because you love it, you're good at it, and it's really good money.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, yeah, but like, that's her thing. I'm good. That's not my thing. He's
Wow.
just looking at me puzzled. He's like, okay, well, but are you sure? And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. There's no way I could do what she does. He's like,
Wow.
I don't understand this, Savannah. I'm like,
Right.
whatever. So this was March of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I start praying. I don't know what else to do. I'm like in this, like, I feel like I'm going crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm meant for more. I know I'm supposed to do more, but what am I doing?
Right.
And so I just start praying hardcore. God, just show me, show me, show me. And here and there, I have people like a friend that had been a stylist for like 15 years is like, you should be a stylist. I'm like, you always say that. And she's like, but you should. I'm like, people always ask me if I was a stylist randomly in bars, like
Right.
when I was early 20s. People were like, I
Yeah.
bet you're a stylist, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
No, actually. So this thing kept coming up, And then my sister one day is like, dude, if I could pay for you to go to cosmetology school, I would, because that's how much I believe you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So I just keep praying, keep praying. May comes.
Okay.
And I'm like, by this point, this theme of like hair school, hairstylist has come up enough that I'm like, okay, it's like undeniable at this point.
Right.
So I go have a meeting with a cosmetology school. The thing is, most of them are set up like Tuesday through Saturday because that's typical salon world.
Okay.
And a lot of them kind of like that 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a kid in kindergarten. I
Not
can't do
possible.
9 to 5 2 days. And I work weddings on Saturdays. So I can't do that either. I make money on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So I'm already kind of like, well, if it's the right thing, it'll work. But otherwise, this isn't going to work, you know?
Right.
But I start praying hardcore. I'm like bro talking God, right?
Yeah,
Dude,
of course.
give me a, like, I need
Let's
to know,
go, man.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I go meet with the hair school, and it's like I could tangibly feel God's presence in that room, to the point that when I left, like the hours all in between my son's school hours, like the way they had it set up was like absolutely perfect. Everything I needed for this to be a go.
Yeah.
Because I was a single mom at the time, this is where it's like even crazier, because I was a single mom at the time, over half of my schooling was paid for in loans that I don't have to pay back in grants, right?
Right.
So it's just like one thing after another. I leave the school, I called my sister, and I just immediately start bawling. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been running from this.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I graduated high school at 15. I have no idea if I'm smart enough to pass these color classes. There's chemistry involved, like anatomy, all these things. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I guess this is what I'm doing. And so I started that summer in July. And again, single mom, mortgage. People are like, wait, you're going to go to school full time? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, but it's
just
the right
figure
thing
it
to
out.
do. God said that's what I'm supposed to do. So that's what we're doing. So that's what I did. A year later, I graduated. And by that time, my sister had become pregnant. And so she was going to transition out from behind the chair at the salon. I wasn't even going to start a salon business per se. I just wanted to be legal to do what we were doing with styling, doing weddings and all that. And in that, I'm like, I really want to do photo shoots. Like, I love modeling myself. I had done a bunch of boudoir shoots myself at that point, and just lifestyle shoots, whatever, fitness shoots.
Right.
But I just like, I wanted to work with photo shoots. I love weddings also, but I don't know. I love the photo shoot realm. And so, graduate school, I end up working with my sister for like 6 months alongside of her.
Yeah.
Got, oh my gosh, training and information, like stuff they never teach you in school, right? And so then she leaves to have a baby. I take over. Well, she has her baby 2019. Right before that, my husband and I end up reconnecting, getting back together. That's a whole other thing. Then 2020 comes.
Yeah.
So now we're newly back together. I've got this salon business that I've inherited from my sister, and the world is shutting down. And so I'm like, well, this is interesting.
Yeah,
Things are
good
just kind of
stuff.
getting started. That's weird, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was very odd. And so whatever, things shut down, everything opens back up. My entire salon world shifted. Weddings were like, my business grew like in insane ways. And then at the end of 2020, God had laid the word action on me. And it was the first time I'd experienced where, like, I have a best friend who's always like, what's our word of the year? And I'm like, I'm going to wait and see what happens. I don't know. Right. I could like nothing would ever come. The end of 2020, God's like, your word of the year is action. It was just dropped on me. I had no idea what that
great
meant.
word. Great word, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, cool, I'm here for it. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So we get into 2020, world shuts, or 2021. And I tell my husband, I'm like, it would be really, really cool. I was like, I would really love to be able to get connected with a photographer that does photo shoots like during the week. I'm like, because before the world shut down, photo shoots were done evenings and weekends because everybody worked 9 to 5.
Right.
But because everybody went virtual, there's now so many people that can really arrange their day. So I'm like, I know this isn't really like a thing, but I just really feel like that, what a cool thing to do. Like, I could work in the salon a day a week, 1 or 2 days. I could go work with a photographer and do photo shoots a couple days. I'm like, I could do my weddings on the weekends and then have time to explore other businesses.
Right.
He's like, yeah, that's great, honey. Cool.
Rock and roll.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that would just be really awesome. Like, I'm not even kidding you. The next week, I had been added to this boudoir photography page, and I thought it was just a friend of mine's friend or whatever.
Sure.
And she posts a model call and says that hair and makeup's included. I don't know this girl. I don't know this. There's like over 1,000 women in this group. I don't know anybody in here. And I
Mhm.
just commented and I was like, well, do you already have an artist for hair and makeup? And I immediately get a text message from my friend and she's like, bro, that's my sister. You got to work with her. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't know this. So the photographer reaches out to me. We end up having like an hour-long conversation. She's like super passionate about what she does. She has a whole like client experience,
Mhm.
very different than anything I had even experienced in doing photo shoots and being behind the scenes of that. And so I'm like, yeah, cool. So she's like, the next day, text me is like, can you do these 3 days? Gives me like 3 days in a row. We've
Right.
never worked together, right? And I'm like,
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So that was January of 2021, and since then, I work with her 1 to 3 times a week. So I've met 1 to 3 women, new women, every week for over a year now, and what's so crazy is that I said I'd done a lot of boudoir shoots. I
Mhm.
love that stuff. I love, like, just I feel like there's so much beauty in, um sensuality when it's not like over sexualized and made gross, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so I've always been drawn to that, but then when you're married, you split, you get back together, my spiritual relationship changed so much. And since then I've had this kind of battle of like, where's that line on expressing myself as a woman and being true to who I am, but also respecting my husband, but also wanting to show other women that you're still a whole ass human on your own,
Right.
even if you are a wife and a mom and a business owner and all these other things.
Mhm.
And so what I discovered is that in getting to work with women that are doing boudoir shoots, it's in a completely different way. I'm involved in a different way. And that like, this is so amazing feeling that I used to get from doing boudoir shoots myself. I
Mhm.
get now doing the hair and makeup, and I have like, an hour plus to spend with these women, and they all have different stories. They
Right.
all,
Right.
some have been sexually abused, physically abused, crazy experiences. Some have, lost weight and want to celebrate their bodies. Some have had, a bunch of kids, and some are like, I'm never getting any younger. Literally
Right.
every story is different. But I knew that it was more than that. Like, it was so cool to be able to interact with these women and share. I have had like a fitness journey and, relationship stuff, just to be able to share life experiences and have
Sure.
these conversations with people that I wouldn't have met otherwise is really cool in and of itself. But I, over time, realized like people have such a misconception about what boudoir is because there's so much of it that's just over sexualized and just done in a ugh
Yeah.
kind of
Tasteless
way. I
manner.
don't even know
Sure.
how to just
Sure.
ugh. Yeah,
Yeah. I want to
And
stop you
so
there for a second. Savannah, I got to stop you there
yeah,
for a
yeah.
second. We're going to pick up right there, but I'm going to go back real quick. I got a question. And
Yes.
then we'll come back to this. But like you mentioned two things. One, the signs God was giving you these signs. Like here listening to you, and the signs were there
Mhm.
the whole time. He's like, "Hey, stupid, I'm trying to give you these signs," and you're like, "Oh, this isn't it." I think that happens so
Yeah.
much with people, right? We see these signs and
Mhm.
we see all these things that mean that we need to go this direction, but we put them off, or we don't think we're good enough, or we don't think it's about us, or something like that. And so, how did you get over that part? Was it just because it was a relentless sign? He was like, and you finally gave into it because it was so prevalent in your life, or was there some piece of action that you said, okay, I'm going to try it no matter what?
I mean, I think it was a combination.
Yeah,
Finally deciding to set the appointment with a hair school
yeah,
was getting to the point of just being sick of my own shit. I think a
mm,
lot of times we don't make decisions until we just get really frustrated with ourselves,
sure,
or our situation or whatever it is. And
hmm,
that's, for that, that's what it was. And then, once it all came together, you know, I was like, okay, this is it. Now, keep in mind, hair school is a year long. It's 1,500 hours, 50 weeks.
Mm.
We had to wear uniforms. I had to listen. I had run my own household, right? And here I was like, I'm 30 years old going to school with 18-year-olds
Right. Right.
in a school setting when I left that school setting at 15.
Yeah.
So it was torture. It was like torture for me. But I
Right.
was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Even though the every day of the uniform and the being somebody telling me where to be and the
Right.
rules and all of that stuff went against everything within me. It was
Yeah.
so hard. But yeah, at that point, it was like the combination of being so ready for something else mixed with God's signs over and over and
Right.
over just
Yeah.
was like, yeah, there was nothing stopping that.
I love that. And what you're saying there, I hear this as well is you had to go through some stuff that you didn't want to go through. And a lot of people don't take that into account. They think, hey, just because I love it is going to be easy. No, just because you love it, it's probably going to be harder.
Yeah.
But like you still have to go do it and you still have to sit in that moment and have that
Mhm.
learner beginner's mindset to say, okay, whatever. I've had enough pain. I'm going to learn a new skill and do that.
Mhm.
And then so you take that mindset and then you go to this action word, and we're to catch back up. And then you go to this action word, which is super important. Like you
Yes.
signed up for the school. Like you can have all the signs and all the help from God as
Mhm.
you know, as God can provide, but at some point you have to do something.
Right, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, you know? I mean,
Right.
that's
So
yeah,
you take the word action and then that was your 2020 word or 2021 word?
that was actually 2021, so at that point, I was already done with school, and I was
Okay.
moving and grooving.
Yeah.
Business had grown through oddly, business had, like, quadrupled
Mhm.
through COVID, um, but yeah, so I started working with Ashley, or no, that had been 2021. Let's see, we're in 2022 now, right? See, it's
It
all
goes by
running
so
together.
fast, right? Yeah.
Yes, truly. So 2021 is when I started working with Ashley. So that was the first thing that I was like, "Oh, wow." I, like, saw something that wasn't actually like, it wasn't happening yet,
Mhm.
but I knew that that's what I needed to be doing for whatever
Mhm.
reason, and then it presented itself, you know? So I was like, "Huh." And then in March, yeah, I think it was March. At any rate, my husband and I ended up buying like an Herbalife club, and that's it again, its own other story.
Yeah.
And then later on down the road, bought a dispensary, sold the Herbalife club. So now we own the dispensary with a couple of friends. That's a lot of fun. Still doing,
Yeah.
boudoir things
Yeah.
every week. But on that side of things, oh, what we were talking about of like realizing it was something different. We had I think 2 months ago, we had a breast cancer survivor come,
Okay.
and she came from Texas to do a photo shoot, and she does not have any breasts, and she didn't have, a lot of women redo them, if they have to have them removed, and she did
Right.
not. And as I was doing her hair and makeup, she, her hair's growing out shorter, not wearing a wig or anything. And as we were talking, she was like, oddly enough, all these years later, after having kids, after having my breasts removed, not having hair, having cancer, she's like, I feel more beautiful than I've ever felt. And I feel more comfortable and confident in my skin than I've ever been. And I was just like, and you sit there and you think about that and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
what? So then she goes, I finish hair and makeup. She goes and does her shoot. I leave. The photographer starts sending me pictures from the shoot. And I'm just like crying. I mean, I showed one to my
Wow.
husband and he started crying.
Wow.
And it's this picture of her. She's got her arms out, no breasts, with like a sash on her and this pretty skirt wrap thing. And it's a black and white photo. And in that moment, I was just like, wow,
Good for her.
it's so much more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good for her.
And we just had a lady reach out whose mom is terminally ill. She also is in Texas and wants us to come and do a photo shoot because her mother wants those pictures in her funeral slideshow.
Wow.
I'm like, my brain cannot comprehend this, but I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
I know that this has been brought together for a reason, and, like, I don't
Mhm.
know what God has in store on that side, but it is, like, it's becoming more and more clear that, like, there's something there that is so powerful, and it's
Yeah.
really, really cool to be part of.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff going on and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you get those stories like that, the empowering stories, I mean, how motivating is that to yourself as well? I'm listening to it and I'm like, wow, how can I be more comfortable in my skin? How can I be better as a person when I get to hear a story like somebody that's been through
Right.
that much trauma and that much challenge in life? And you're like, wait a second,
Mhm.
I'm playing too small. I'm like,
Right.
what am I
Yeah, I
doing?
mean,
Yeah,
right, exactly. I mean, I
yeah,
think that's the cool thing about just being in an industry where you meet people though, is like you're never gonna be around people that think the same way or believe the same things and all that,
right,
and what's great about that is that you have an opportunity to learn something new every single day and see a different perspective of something, you know?
right, right.
And I think
Yeah.
all of those perspectives end up shaping us and how we move in life, and so
It's awesome.
it's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
it's awesome. So we got like a minute left. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, it flies by. Like 20 minutes is never enough, right? 20 minutes is never enough.
Right.
But so you have so many things going on. You have podcasts coming up. You have the dispensary, like you said.
Yes.
You have what podcast what are you excited about or most you're excited about all of it, obviously, but like
I am.
what can you
I
share that
just
some people can join and kind of listen to more of what you're talking about right here?
well, so I just, again, lots of soul searching. I feel like we're always growing,
Yeah.
always ever evolving.
Mhm.
And, I've at this kind of point in my career life of where I'm like, okay, yes, we're here and that's wonderful. And thank you. I have the very things that I prayed for.
Mhm.
What else am I supposed to be doing? And a thing that has been common thing is I have so many experiences and just words and lots up in
Yeah.
there that
Yeah.
needs to come out. And I love talking with people. I love asking people questions. I love hearing different perspectives. And so
Yeah.
I've had several different ideas for podcasts for like many years and I've just never done it. And
Sure.
I'm just, again, you meet so many people, you hear perspectives, you get tired of playing small. And so I'm just kind of like, let's go. So
Yeah.
there's like three different podcasts, I
Oh
think.
my
One of
gosh,
them I'll
you have
just
to
be
pick one.
producing. I won't be in it, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
excited.
Okay. Okay. Well, so maybe people can follow on your social media. Was it at tell everybody what your social
Yes.
media is so they can follow all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, it's just at Savannah Octiva.
Okay. Right on. And
And
I'll
yeah,
put that in the
everything will be
description
on
too. Yeah.
there. So
Yeah. Right on. Put that in the
yeah.
description. You have the podcast. You have obviously unbelievable stories. We could probably talk for 3-4 hours just on the stories from the empowering, like you said, if your husband was emotional about it. I mean, that's just a moving story. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you being here. Everybody listening, go
Thank you
follow
for having me.
Savannah. She's super rad. She has all kinds of things going on. And like I said, we can never talk about it in 20 minutes. So that's never going to be enough. So thanks for being on the show today. Is there anything that you like to add before we go?
No, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Right on. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
All right.
Hey, one last thing before you go, leave a comment. Which example did you most align with from today's show? I'm curious. I want to know. Also, if there's somebody that you want to find out what's made them nervous, leave their name in the comment. I'll try to get them on the show. Follow me on social media at Jake Bolig. Follow the show at Go Find Nervous. And if you don't mind, subscribe. It helps me out the whole algorithm thing. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Go Find Nervous.